talk. So good evening, everybody, and I am Dr. Mukta Bapat, and I'm your host for today. I'm very excited to start our 8th session of UMANG program. Now, as many of you know, that UMANG is an organization run by doctors for doctors, and the theme is to hold programs wherein bring in people to from whom we can get inspired. So today's theme is about name, fame, and game. The idea for that is, as we all know, that a life of a doctor is not very, is not planned, and at multiple points it can go in up and downs and take turns. Especially after COVID, there are a lot of people who have done a lot of introspection. Our idea is to bring to you people from different specialties and who have their name, they're famous, and they're trying to make themselves popular. Some of them already are, and try and find out if we can learn something from them, as you can say, pearls of wisdom. So today's faculty is first Dr. Roy Patankar. He's a lab surgeon and he's director of Zen Hospital at Chembur. Second is Dr. Nitin Burkule. He's an eminent cardiologist. He's also consultant cardiologist and head of cardiology at Jupiter Hospital. He is considered to be master in echocardiography. That's his international repute. Dr. Santosh Rathod is a physician who is practicing in Thane. And Dr. Chasnal Rathod, she is a pediatric orthopedic consultant. So that's a very specialized and unique field. So I welcome you all, Roy, Nitin, Santosh, and Chasnal. The question for today is made by our friends Kanchan, Dr. Kanchan. She'll be with me. She's a consultant endocrinologist. And it is framed by Dr. Pradipta. She's also on the group. She's a consultant psychiatrist. So I hope at the end of discussion, we have some message to take home. So first question to all of you from my side will be to what does name mean to you all? And did all of you had a planned program when you began your practice? And how did you go about it? We have a lot of sub questions in this. Maybe if you don't cover, I will ask them. So did you need a mentor? And do you still follow your mentor, or you have a role model? So maybe Roy can start answering, and then subsequently Nitin and Santosh and Chasnal can answer. So Roy? Hello?
Interesting that only for Dr. Burkali you said he's an eminent cardiologist. And for all of us, jokes apart, I think that there is a Freudian slip there, Mukta, and I will ask the psychiatrist later on what the importance of that is. But I think name, game, fame, these are all things that, at least in my case, happen to a large extent by accident, if you like. I think obviously, like everyone else, you want to be successful in life and you work hard towards that goal. And I've had some great mentors, starting from my general surgery training in Dr. Dara Dastoor in Cooper Hospital, then my time in England, and after I returned from England, Dr. H.S. Bhanushali in Thane have been great mentors, and I still follow them and respect them and appreciate a lot. I learned as much surgery from Dr. Bhanushali as I learned non-surgical things, how to manage people, because I'd come fresh from England, having worked there for 6 years, no experience in practice, very little money, no contacts. I'd been out of circulation for 6 years. I learned a lot from Dr. Bhanushali about life in general, handling politicians, handling social workers, RTI activists, labor issues. So I watched Sir very, very closely. I worked with him in Thane for 2 years. And I think he's been a great mentor for me. And I still respect him for all that he's given for me.
So you think this plan was not chopped out for you when you started your practice, right?
Many accidents, Mukta, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this, that led me to start a reasonably successful hospital in Chembur. But in many ways, fate and destiny do it. I think you just put your head down and keep working hard and keep working outside your comfort zone all the time. That is the bottom. If there are any young guys, any young surgeons watching this, I would say just keep working outside comfort zone, and every year try and acquire one new skill. and that has been my motto. And I think many other, it is destiny and a series of accidents that have taken me to where I am.
Okay, now we'll ask Nitin. What do
Yes,
you have?
yeah. Thanks for calling me on this forum. First, I think you asked whether what is name means to you. Okay.
Yes.
I think for me, the name means it should evoke trust. I think that's fundamental as a doctor. Because people should know that he's the most trustworthy doctor and he will never misguide you. I think that was right from the beginning. I had in mind that it should be trust. It need not be that you should be known as someone very academically brilliant or some very brilliant a very brilliant diagnostician or something like that.
Yeah.
Your patients may say that, oh, he missed my diagnosis or he over treated me or under treated me, but now no one should say that he misguided me or he did some unnecessary procedure. So that kind of trust you have to develop, and I think once you develop that kind of trust, people will even forgive you if you have misdiagnosis by a whisker, because they know that it was never intentional. So I think that was what I said about the name in the practice. I think your second question was mentors. um,
Yes.
I think we had mentors when we were undergraduate, but by the time we were doing residency, that to the super specialty residency, I think most of the institutes, sorry to say that, but most of the institutes in Mumbai had started their decline because many of the full timers have started leaving the hospitals. So, unfortunately, during my super specialty residency, I did not get any mentor, and that I always regret. But the thing is, but I always emulated someone whom I respected in the same field. So those could have been some international faculty or some national faculty whom you interact or whom you listen to, whom you observe closely. So I think it was more of a mentorship through observation. And I think
Okay.
lastly, you asked me about whether at the beginning of the practice, whether you had planned everything, how you want to ascend the
Yes.
ladder. I think
Yes.
none of us can do that because you know that all of us have started as students who did not have any background in the family of doctors. No
True.
background at all. All of us started as the typical
That's right.
typical Marathi middle class students. So I did not have anything to be chopped out, but one thing I knew that I had to work in institute, because when I started practice in Thane, I think Thane was very backward. There were no institutes, there were no cath labs, nothing. Even if you have to do one angio, you have to go all the way to Jaslok or Khambala Hill. So it was very backward. But during that time when I started my practice
Uh-huh.
somewhere in 97 onwards, I had it in my dream that I have to work in an institute. That is why the moment I got into Asian Heart, I was happy. Then thereafter, when Jupiter came up, I shifted to Jupiter because, and whenever I used to read, somebody's affiliations like say Instituto di Cardiologica, I used to feel very envy for those people because, but I knew that I had to work in an institute. So that was the only way, and probably that led me to making choices and getting out of nursing home type practice or solo practice and enter into institute.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Santosh?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me into this forum. It's an honor to be sharing the dais with all the seniors. So, coming to the questions, basically, like Burkle sir said, that when it comes to name, since I have been born and brought up in Thane, and there have been many huge names which are been practicing in Thane from 1980s, and bigger names in 1990s, even bigger names in 2000s. So it used to be almost okay. I go to so and so consultant, I go to so and so surgeon, and I get operated by so and so. And I used to be always awed with the concept of how people would really, associate themselves in such a big way with doctors. And that's what my definition of a good name would be, is just dependability and be available at the times. Most of the times it's difficult to be available 24/7 365 days, but just dependability and availability is a big factor for establishing a name. Coming to the next question, at the beginning of your career, do you have any plans? Like Burkule sir said, again, we were the first family member to become a doctor in the family, and throughout our residency, we are taught, इसका blood collection करो, उसका report चाहिए, इसका इधर तक evaluation होना चाहिए, ये discharge क्यों नहीं किया? We have always been directed by our seniors, by our lecturers, by our HOUs to follow a particular line. And when we suddenly come into practice, there is no one left to guide you as to where to go, whom to meet, how to go about setting. So it was just practice was set up just every day as it comes. It never was initially thought, but once over a period of next 1.5 years, as I gained some knowledge about how things go about, or how private practice in Thane and residency are two different worlds apart, which have very little crossover amongst them. It took about a year to realize how to go about setting into one particular place. Do you need special training or work experience before you enter into practice? Yes, definitely. I think it makes a big deal if you have at least a glimpse of what private practice is. It might be as a resident RMO, it might be as an ICU registrar, it might be as an assistant to someone, it might be as a casualty officer, but just setting foot and testing the waters before you jump in is really helpful. And mentors are always helpful. I still am looking at my senior colleagues, I'm still looking at my senior surgeons, and every day has been a learning experience even now.
Okay, Chaslin?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Dr. Mukta, for having me here. And it's a pleasure to be amongst all the great people whom I have met in past during my tenure at Jupiter. And coming to the question, for me, name was like I began practicing all over Mumbai. So when I started practicing, I already had a rough plan that I wanted to have a practice in South Bombay, North Bombay, as well as all part of Bombay. And for me, name was that patient should come to me as being, they want to see me and not being recognized as part of being hospital. So there are two ways of practice. A patient goes to a XYZ hospital because that hospital is popular. And otherwise, the patient goes to one particular surgeon or a doctor whom they really want to meet or show, or they have heard about through a word of mouth. So I think for me, name matters, that when I say the patient that, yes, today I'm in this part of the city and you want to meet, you have to come here. And I think when they do that, that's when you have achieved name. And when it comes to the training, yes, it's very important that we develop adequate skills. We develop a niche in our own branch, because getting into practice at an early age certainly doesn't help us to go anywhere ahead in future very fast, because we all as surgeons, or many of the surgeons would agree, that we reach a plateau or we get bored with the same procedures we perform every time. And like Roy sir mentioned, that every year we should learn a new skill. And I always tell that to all the juniors, that every year you should go and visit some new hospital, maybe for a month, 15 days, because there's every time a new thing to learn from other surgeon, other countries, or even in our own country, there is so much of variety to learn. So I think learning or trying to acquire newer skills is a never-ending process, and we as surgeons should always keep on inculcating that and promote that even in the younger generation. And mentors, yes, my very fond mentor is Dr. Mukund Thatte sir, and sir is who has actually told me this, that you have to stop roaming many hospitals and you sit in one place and you tell the patient that you are here and they're going to come to you. So I think this acquiring the name or getting this thought that I want to do this, I have actually got it from Dr. MRT sir, and I really admire him as my mentor today. And when I started my work as an SRship in Wadia Hospital, he was my first teacher there, along with other teachers in the pediatric ortho department, but he has been my mentor. And I think we should all have one mentor, not particularly just for looking out in academic field, but also to give us the wise words or the advices which probably nobody taught us in the books or during the medical life. So we do need a mentor for all these times or tough times or times where we have difficulties in dealing the practice. Yes, we do need a mentor. So that's it.
Great. So I think you all have really answered very well. So I think now I'll hand over to Kanchan. Would you take the next question?
Yeah, thank you, Mukta. So I think it was really insightful to, I mean, I guess trustworthiness, dependability, mentor, training, I think all these are very important to create a name and even to live by that. So now coming to our next question, which is again a common question to all our panelists. So once we start practice, I wanted to understand from you all that how do we sustain the number game? Like when we start practice, there's a lot of pressure and we really want to establish ourselves and grow very fast. And we all, we usually get tempted initially to take the incentive path early in the career. So I wanted to have your thoughts on this, that how do we really balance the medical ethics in practice and at the same time try to get the numbers? So if Dr. Burkule would want to start.
The number game is something I think you have to be away from. That I realized very early during my residency itself, because I have realized that the medical practice needs every patient is precious, or every life matters, every heart matters. So you have to give enough time, enough thought, and you have to be very diligent in your procedures there. So I realized very early that when you are practicing solo or even in small group or in a smaller institutes, the moment the quantity increases, the quality goes down, and that's the bottom line. And this is true for even for the people who are who are writers or in creative field also. The moment they start producing a lot of creative material, you will find that the level starts going down, and this is perfectly true for the medicine also. So that's why I always say that, and I have seen this in institutes also. The institutes with a very high volume of cardiology work, the quality has suffered, and that's true. All over India, I had seen that. Rather, I always tell to everyone, my colleagues and peers, that go to a consultant who is moderately engaged. Why moderate work? Because his skills are maintained. And why moderate? Because he has enough time to think about the case. The moment you go, the moment you get overwhelmed by the work, your quality goes down, your thought process goes down, and there is a burnout also. So I have always remained away from the number games. I never know how many patients I have seen at the end of the day. I never know how many procedures I have done at the end of a month. That is one thing. And secondly, I never look at the the balance sheet that the hospital sends you at the end of 1 month. I never look at it for the same reason, because I don't want to get swayed by increasing the numbers of a particular procedure or a particular thing. So that is one thing. Second is I think second part of your question was related to the what did you say? The second
I
part.
said, how do you maintain a balance between ethics, medical ethics, and the number? I mean, I was trying to understand how do we sustain the number once we start our private practice?
Yeah, I think there is always a gestational period in your practice. You have to be very patient during that period and not fall prey to those devious practices. And I think when your one patient is happy, actually there are at least 3 to 4 families know about you. That is what I have realized, because it is his family, his in-laws family, his neighbor, and so on and so forth. So actually, the for every satisfied patient, I think there are 4. The practice increases 4-fold, but you have to be very patient about it. And I think ethics is something that you cannot compromise at all. That's the bottom line. I think there cannot be something like you can be mildly ethical or moderately ethical. You have to be ethical or not. It's the yes or no. So I think I think medical practice. I always I don't like that word of marketing in the medicine. That is like commodifying the medicine or commodifying our profession. Though people look at that way nowadays to us, but I think so. That is why I detest that word of marketing. I think it automatically, when you are ethical, when you are diligent about your patient, and if you are in a good institute and you create a very good team, I think automatically the work comes to you. there's such a huge population here, and there are such a less number of consultants per million population. So I think there is no dearth of work there. Definitely no dearth of work, and I think that is the way to go about it.
Thank you, sir. Dr.
Santosh,
Patel, sir, if you could just
Jasmine?
tell us your views on this. Dr. Patenker, you are unmuted.
Roy, are you around?
So I think I have a very different view from Nitin actually.
Sure.
And to me, I think the key is GI surgery is not an art, it is science. There may be a small dash of art in it, something that we all do, but basically I like to think of our department like a McDonald's. If you have 150 McDonald's in 10 countries, the fries still taste the same and the burger tastes the same. My challenge as the head of the hospital, head of the unit, as an entrepreneur, is to make sure we deliver surgical and GI care in exactly the same way as our volumes keep on increasing. And to me, numbers are important. I'm also an entrepreneur. I employ 350 people. So 350 families also depend on me. One is I wear two hats, Roy, the GI surgeon, and Roy, the entrepreneur. So if you ask me as a GI surgeon, I may have some sympathy with what Nitin said, but as the entrepreneur, for me, numbers, occupancy, top line, bottom line are important. And I firmly believe that you can make money in medicine by doing good ethical practice. If you carve out a niche for yourself, if you have the required skill set, and yes, have marketing skills. I don't look at marketing as a bad word. Something you do ethically, make sure other people, see the times of organic growth are gone. It has to be inorganic growth where it is direct to consumer, direct to professional. We all need to, we are very poorly trained. When I came out of having done my MS in general surgery in KEM, I was useless in reading a balance sheet. I had no clue of social media. I had no clue of marketing. That is clearly important. And whether Nitin likes it or not, we are commodities. I think the young super specialists coming out of medicine today will be well paid professionals working in a corporate hospital like Jupiter, like Fortis, like KDH, like BLK Max. The days of individuals starting large hospitals is gone. It has to be groups of individuals starting large hospitals, or you work as a highly paid professional in a corporate setup like Jupiter. So we are commodities. We are well paid, educated, trained commodities, but we are commodities, and medicine is going to be like this, whether you like it or not. Now, my challenge is, as Aziz Premji, I heard an interview by Mr. Premji, and he said, the key for me as people, he was asked, you're a BCom and you have, hundreds and thousands of people who are PhDs and MTechs. So he said, my job as the CEO is to hold on to the organization, people who are better than me. So my challenge as an entrepreneur was to keep in Zen a team of talented guys, many of whom are better than me academically, surgically. I have 7 full-time surgeons working with me. And the only way we can have large numbers is by having numbers of trained, dedicated people who think like you, who have similar ethics like you, and who are as academic like you. I make no bones of it. You can grow as much as your team allows you to grow. I am merely the man sitting on the top of the helm. I have people like Vishaka Kalikar, who's a Thane resident, who's been my DNB student, then a fellow with me, and now a consultant now for the last 7 years. I have 7 people like this who have been outstanding in helping me grow and my hospital to grow. If you ask me about ethics, I don't think anybody in this group is black or white. We are all shades of gray. So saying that I am ethical and somebody else isn't is not correct. I think every one in this 61 people have joined, all of us are shades of gray. We need to decide what shade of gray we are. Are you veering towards the black or veering towards the white? You draw a line in the sand. If somebody asks me to do an appendectomy, if I don't agree, I'm going to say no. That's where I draw a line in the sand. But I don't think marketing is a bad word. Sorry, Nitin, I have to give you my mind. And I think great that Mukta and Kanchan have got people from both ends of the spectrum. We'll let the audience make up their mind about what is important and whether we are commodities or otherwise.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That was brilliant. So, Chasnal, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so partly I agree with Burkule sir and partly with Dr. Patinkar. So when it comes to the number game, yes, I totally don't chase numbers, and I totally believe in the fact that the less patients we see, the more we interact with them, they build up an experience with us, because we as doctors, we see nearly 50, 60, maybe whatever number of patients every day. And we just consider them as one patient. But when the patient comes to us, they look up to us as that one doctor whom they have waited for days to get an appointment, travel to see us. So it does matter for them that we spend time with them, we give them, explain them, talk to them, all the pros and cons related to the surgery, or discuss and take away all the doubts they have. So number game, yes, I don't like to chase. And maybe most of the people here must be knowing about Dr. Johari sir, who's the pioneer of pediatric ortho. And I have learned this from him, because people wait 6 months to see him because he doesn't want to chase the number. He gives the same time to each patient, irrespective where they come from, what is the background, and nobody gets rushed up in the waiting list. So I think it's important that we maintain a good interactive time and a good experience with the patient. And when it comes to marketing, yes, just like the restaurants sell on review, nowadays even the doctors are all being just chased by reviews, and people even before visiting us, they want to know everything about us through our digital presence. And I don't mean that marketing, we do some unethical marketing, but yes, just having a very good digital presence, and which fit in the MCI norms. So yes, there are a lot of rules which we need to follow as healthcare professionals, and we need to have marketing which fit under the MCI norms. And if we have a very good digital presence, then that is a kind of marketing, and that could help us build and promote our practice in some way. And in today's world, when everything is so much digitalized and everyone is searching everything on their fingertips, I think it's very important that even we should be present in that marketing era, and we should be presentable and available and have the information which people are searching for about us. So that's it.
What about your thoughts, Dr. Santosh? How do we really sustain this number game is what I wanted to know.
So as a person looking back at since the last 12 years, now initially most of us have in fact chased the numbers. We have always been happy. I have seen 20 patients in OPD, 25 patients in OPD. We go back, but eventually after several years, and it eventually comes to everyone that at a particular point of time, you cannot really work more than the number of hours which is permissible. And at the end of it, if you have a consultation for 4 hours, it's impossible to see a patient in 2 minutes, in 3 minutes. Like Dr. Chasnal said, that once the patient comes into your room, they expect your complete undivided attention. And that's very impossible in a matter of 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And eventually, most of us after 2, 3, 4, 5 years grow out of the numbers game, because you don't really have 25 hours out of 24 hours. And there are so much patience, and most of us have to realize once we come out of residency and into practice that it's not a competition anymore. You're not competing against a colleague of yours, you're not competing against a senior of yours, or you're not going to be competing against a juniors of yours. There is just so much amount of overwhelming work, even in a city like Thane, and even outside Thane, and even in the rural areas, that you will eventually grow out of the numbers. So even if you think of numbers right now, probably a couple of years later, 3 years later, probably the number game as a individual practitioner would have gone. When it comes to ethics, I think and ethics, even though there's a topic of ethics in our medical curriculum, it's one of the most neglected ones. And ethics has to come from within. It has to be inculcated from somewhere within. There are some norms, there are some things which you would not be comfortable doing, or you have to learn very early in your practice to just say no, like an unindicated surgery or an unindicated procedure. It has to come from within and from you, and you have to be firm about it. When it comes to the commercial side of practice, most of us doctors have been, they are gradually improving, but most of the doctors aren't very good at marketing themselves, especially on the social media. But I think that the numbers are increasing, and the newer generations which are coming up, the newer set of doctors who are coming out of medical institutes are far more oriented than what we were when we passed out from residency.
Correct. So I think what we gathered is basically to all our young medicos who just started practice, that we should not really be under so much of pressure for the number game. I think once you give a quality practice, I mean, your practice gradually grows. So you need the quality matters and you need to have patience. And as Sir said, anyways, the ratio of doctors to our population is less. So there won't be any dearth of patience. So it's just a matter of patience and delivering quality work. And marketing, yes, digital media is present and that does play a role in making your presence felt and making yourself available to the patients. So over to you, Mukta, for the next question, please.
Yeah, okay. Now that you are on, commercial side or making your name and getting the fame, now we have, I think, from name we have come to fame, making yourself famous or making yourself more popular. So one commonly seen thing in the medical practice is about, making yourself known either in the media or in your own society and getting, national accolades. So my question to Roy is,
I can't hear Mukta. Kanchan, can you take that question? I think Mukta's bandwidth is a problem.
How does one go about it in case there are many people in the audience who would like well known by the way? So number one is how really helps in. Hello.
No, I missed that question. Mukta. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So we saw how to make your name. Now, when we are on becoming famous, one is there are many people who want to become maybe secretaries and presidents in their societies. They want to have name. They want to conference, hold webinars and hold workshops. And second, so do you believe in all this? And second, is it necessary? Second, what help does it do to you? So what's your view on it? I'm asking you this very specifically. You know why?
Mukta, I think, I'll tell you, this was more a need for me. I came back from England having spent about 7 years there in 1995, having reasonably good laparoscopic skills when not many people in Mumbai were doing lap surgery. So it was a question of being in the right place at the right time. The unfortunate part was the first 5 years, I was never able to reach out to the target audience, which was the young surgical community. I was very keen on teaching. I tried to get myself an opening in a teaching hospital. I tried KEM, I tried peripheral hospitals, but nobody would take me. I had no practice, I had no money, I had large loans. I was given a fixed salary by Dr. Bhanushali for what assistance I did in the hospital. So the only way I realized to reach out to young surgeons and train people, because I agree, I told you I'm an entrepreneur, I'm after numbers, and I'm a great believer in developing a team and doing big numbers, is to teach people. And my claim to fame, or infamy if you like, is being a reasonably good teacher. And for some reason, we have now almost 150 fellows who have trained with me. Somehow they seem to speak well about me for reasons I don't know. But the only way I could get this was by joining associations. So I joined the Association Surgeons of India, Minimal Access Surgeons of India, more as a need to be able to reach out to the target audience, which was the surgical community and the residents. And I was one of the first people in 1998 who started doing live workshops. And I became secretary of the organization. I must have traveled to virtually every taluka of Maharashtra showing lap coals, upper GI endoscopy, then later on lap oncology, lap esophagectomies. So this was more a need. And as one of my colleagues in Dr. Madhuri Gore, who was head of department of surgery at Sion, she was telling me today afternoon when she heard I was speaking, is tula bolnechi jhing hai. I don't know how to translate it in English, but it's a nasha hai. This reaching to the audience, to teach, to stand on a platform, having students with you. Currently, we have a DNB program in minimal access surgery. We have about 4 fellows who are training with us. So that is part of growth. I don't regard that as a part of marketing and I don't see why people should be disparaging about that. I think these are my brand ambassadors. Today, almost 25% of my work is from outside Mumbai. And the reason is for all these extensive workshops, lectures that I've been doing for the last 20 years, people know my skill, people know I have flexibility in my charges. I can help them in a difficult patient. And I think God has been kind to me.
Okay, so according to you, this is the most ethical way of teaching as well as doing a very skilled marketing, right? If I can say that.
Absolutely. I think it was a need. I wanted to teach, and I wasn't in a teaching hospital, and no teaching hospital at that time was willing to take me. So I decided to create my own teaching hospitals. We have 120 bed hospitals. So we have DNB, we have MEHS fellowships, we have CPS fellowships. So that is the best way of reaching out to my target audience and achieve my teaching and liking that I wanted to pursue.
Fine. Kanchan, I think I'll hand over to you for the next question.
Yeah.
We are already at 5:40, so we have some 20 minutes left.
Yeah. So my next question is to Dr. Santosh. Dr. Santosh, you are a general physician and you started your practice in Thane where there were many physicians already in practice. And this is true for other specialties as well, like your gynecologists and surgeons whom we have in ample. Yeah. But the problem, the best thing was you were able to create a mark. So I wanted to understand from you that if there are already 10 doctors practicing and if you are the 11th one practicing in that area, how did you really create a niche for yourself or, make your presence felt in such a scenario? So how did you really manage to get a hold there?
Yeah, so basically when I started off, like you said, there were already many physicians in Thane and the numbers are growing every year, and we are actually very happy about the numbers also growing. So when we started in 2011, API Thane had a strength of 90 members. Today API Thane is 140 and going strong, and there are still quite a lot of members who need to be added. So when I started my work, I didn't feel any ego or anything bad about approaching my seniors, approaching most of the consultants, even super specialists, even cardiologists, even gastroenterologists. I approached them and took their view about how to start my practice or how to go about. And most of them were, and almost all of them were extremely helpful in guiding me towards the right path. And I've been trying to follow most of their instructions. And one thing which I really try to work on is Dr. Patankar's advice to at least try gaining some new skill every year or every alternate years. In medicine, unlike in surgery, where there are multiple workshops and upgradations and seminars and on-hands workshop, in medicine, we don't get a lot, but even the online training and the online modules do really help us a lot in getting abreast with the present situation or, updating yourself on the knowledge wise. And probably that's where I think I scored better over the last several years. And at the same time, I still look on to my seniors and my super specialty in charges to help me around in any case whatsoever. So I've been continuously trying to learn with every year as it goes.
Yes, that was really wonderful. So basically, developing a new skill and being updated with your subject is what helped you stand apart. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. So over to you, Mukta.
Yeah. Now, next question is to Chasnel. I think we have a lot of women in this audience. Chasnel, you are a pediatric orthopedic surgeon. Now, you are a lady in this male-dominated world. So it is not exactly about gender bias, but then how do you establish yourself in such kind of situation, and how do you go about facing the challenges?
Yeah. So yes, now it doesn't sound much like a gender bias, Dr. Mukta, but when I was taking up the post-graduation seat, the dean and the head of the department, they asked me twice that, are you sure you're going to take up ortho? And I told them that, yes, I have already made up my mind. And it's been 2 years. I have been preparing and waiting for this day to take up ortho. And it is actually, if we consider ortho is one of the most competitive as well as a very difficult branch. And during my residency, I remember there were days when I never went back to the hostel, like 3 days in continuity. I used to work the way the guys used to work. So currently, then there were very few females, but now last year I was part of the Indian Ortho Association Executive Committee for the women's wing. And currently we have 220 plus women in ortho, out of which around 200 are pursuing ortho. So I always tell these girls that we don't have to play the weaker sex card or not show that we can't do this work or not even be very heroic or try to compete with the guys. It's like just doing our duties diligently the way we would have done in any other field or at any other place. So it's important that consistently doing the work in a right way, being diligent, sincere. And I think we need to like be the way everyone else is in the department, like not set ourselves different or not try to be different in the department. Like if we gel up with all the guys, they are going to treat you as one and not treat you like a fairer sex or someone weak or someone who's not competent to do the work as they are doing. And I think it's very much okay to take up ortho. And when I joined ortho, my HOD had told me just one sentence, that it's nothing that you have to be very strong to take up ortho. Currently, we have the best tools possible and you should know the right technique. If you are putting too much strength and trying to do a lot of some weird reduction and something weird, that means you're going wrong. So you need to know the right technique and you need to have the right tool, and you will always do well in ortho. And I just followed that advice which Dr. Paton gave me when I joined ortho. And I'm glad that it has always helped me. And even today, I think it's great being in this field, and I'm really happy to be part of this. I mean, if I ever get a chance to think of re-choosing a field, it's again going to be ortho only. I mean, I don't feel bad a bit about being in it or don't regret at all. So it was by choice, and I think it's quite possible currently to take up this field. And there are many subspecialties like hand, foot and ankle, sports medicine, which the female orthos, if they want to take up, they can always do. If they don't want to be in trauma, spine, or more challenging branches, then there are other possibilities as well.
So, Shaswal, if I can say it correctly, that you really don't have to play the weak 6 card. And second is, even if it is not ortho, in other interventional branches also, we don't have to feel that it's a surgical field or it's a technically demanding field, or even when private practice, it should not deter them to choose these interventional fields, right? They don't have to be really only clinical. So it's pretty much easy, or pretty much possible rather, if you are diligent and if you are very sincere and hardworking for it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Kanchan, to you now.
Yeah. So thank you, Mukta. So my next question would be to Dr. Burkoli and Dr. Roy Patankar, sir. So I wanted to understand that once you are famous and known as on the professional front, and as your seniority increases, your workload also increases. So what is the mantra for maintaining the quality along with the, with the quantity with equal enthusiasm? So how do you go about it?
I think there is generally you break the ceiling in 8 to 10 years of your practice. Generally, after 8 to 10 years of practice, there is so much of work that there is no stopping about it. Now the question is how to maintain the quality, interest, and sanity also. I think this is very important.
True.
The only way I think you can maintain is that you have to keep a novelty in your practice. And how do you create a novelty? I think that is by continuously upgrading yourself and continuously reading the literature. That's very interesting. That is very important. I remember one of my batchmate cardiologist, a very huge practice in Mumbai, said ki I feel burnout because see, there are only 3 coronaries, LAD, L6, RCA. There's nothing in cardiology. In my mind, I said that, brother, you're missing too many things. There are coronaries, there is a myocardium, there is a pericardium, and there is a whole patient outside that. And every patient is unique. But the thing is, you can appreciate that only if you are reading the current literature, in which you are as if you are interacting with the bright minds in your profession. Then every patient becomes very interesting because you find something new or something which conforms to the new findings. And you start looking at the whole way or the same question, the same mundane questions differently. Okay, because all these bright minds are working on those things. Okay, so everything starts becoming more interesting, and you never get fed up with the ordinary work, because not everyone is going to get the cream work. Okay, a part of it has to be a very regular and routine work, which actually creates boredom. But that boredom is also lost when you start finding certain very unique patterns, something very unique pathologies, and some great diagnosis. And that whole process can happen only if you are keeping abreast with the literature. I think that's the way to maintain quality, because you are always contemporary. You know what is the current guidelines, and you give the best to the patient, and at the same time you do not have that burnout of seeing the same patients again and again. Actually, one of my mentor, Dr. Bharat Dalvi, used to say, if you don't think and see 100 patients, it is actually you have seen one patient 100 times. I think that is perfectly right. I
Very
think that
true.
is the way one should go about it.
That's great. That's really. What is your take on it, sir?
So Kanchan, I'm going to answer your question in two parts. One is, how do I keep the fire in me burning? Now, I'm a very boring personality. I actually like to work. So if you ask me what I like to do on a Sunday morning, it's doing a nice hernia or a laparoscopic CA rectum. That's my view of a good Sunday morning. But that much to my wife's disgust, that apart. But I think what has kept me in my toes is my fellows, the 6 guys in my department who are brighter, younger, have more energy, who are reading more, and are constantly questioning me is what keeps me in my toe and keeps the academic fire in me burning. I think that is why I'd strongly recommend that if you want to grow, make sure you have residents and fellows around you. Particularly post-MS fellows are the ones who keep you on your toes. As far as the second part of the question about work-life balance is, I think a doctor is like a juggler with 3 balls. The first ball is your professional practice. The second is your personal life. And the third is your social commitment. It is inevitable that as 1 or 2 balls go higher, the third ball suffers. And I'm sure in my case, I have not been a good father or have not been a very good husband. And my wife, luckily for me, hasn't left me yet. I think it's a little late in life, but I keep keeping my fingers crossed. But I still spend 16 hours a day working, and I don't think the fire in me to do surgery has gone away, to learn new procedures, to try new things. And I don't really believe that you need to be in a teaching hospital. In our department, we have 8 to 10 publications every year. We are a purely private hospital. Still, we will publish. Each of my fellows has a whip after them. If you don't publish at least 1 paper a year, he's going to get whipped. So I think it is that academic fire in you that keeps you on your toes and you keep enjoying it. I do some charitable work at a place called Gondavlekar Maharaj Hospital near Satara. So we operate there once a month. And I think to some extent, that is the only thing that keeps my feet on the ground. As my wife tells me, it's such a big balloon, you need somebody to prick the balloon once in a while to make sure your feet are on the ground. And I think some spiritual base, I think Pinky would agree with me here, it doesn't mean God. Some spirituality is important to keep your expectations down and your egos under control and feet on the ground.
That was wonderful. So I would like to ask you, Dr. Nitin, sir, how do you strike a balance between work, academic growth, and personal life?
It's the most difficult question that I have faced up till now. Okay. And with my wife sitting across, I can't bluff also. So I think it's very difficult, and I don't think I'm successful in that at all. As Roy said, that you drop 1 ball definitely. Okay, so it is better that you drop the balls alternately, so that so that no one is victimized. But that does happen. So the thing is, sometimes I think anyway the patient gets a priority, or because it is his life and death situation or his important situation, so that has to get a priority. But then there are certain other priorities like your academic commitment, like your lecture somewhere. I think those you can always balance it out according to your family needs and your social needs. So it is always a very difficult decision, but you have to take it. So I had turned down lecture in something like ACC or in even in European CVI, just for the family commitments, because I think somewhere you have to draw a line, because that those things are really not really required except for boosting your ego. So you have to balance it out with your family commitments. But I think it's a story with every doctor that it's very difficult to keep everyone happy. Your patients, your family, your social network. It's a very difficult job, and I have not yet found any answer to it. Let me be very candid about it.
All right. Thank you, sir. I mean, that was really nice. I mean, very rarely people admit that, but I think you all both have beautifully said that, you cannot keep everything happy and everybody happy, and you need to keep making choices as per the situation. And definitely the passion and the fire in you is what keeps delivering the best quality of work. So that's really commendable. Thank you. Over to you, Mukta.
Yeah, now I think we are coming to the end of session. We have 2-3 quick questions now. there is one approach which is being popular recently. That is people having a group practice or people having a team practice and people having solo practice. Now, I have questions. This question for Santosh, Chasnal, and Roy. Roy, you can answer last. So first is Santosh and Chasnal. That would you? What is your opinion about doing a group practice? Group practice means team practice. That's what I mean. This is important. So, does it have a role? Will it stand test of time? And or you should be a solo practicing or a freelancer? Quick comment.
Yeah, so when I started practice, I did a mixed practice, ma'am. So I left Vadia, and when I moved totally into private practice, 2 days I gave to a group practice, and the rest of the days I started freelancing and I joined a couple of other corporates. So I think we as beginners should always be part of group practice because that kind of relieves some stress and helps to keep the financial situation also better, and it doesn't add financial stress. So a mix of both should ideally be a very good thing, and it worked well with me. So I recommend a combination practice.
Santosh, it's difficult for you, but what is your take on that? Would you like it? Or?
No, we have been working as a group right from our residency. We were a houseman, we were 2 housemen, we were a registrar, we were a lecturer. We used to take rounds together. And then once we started off into private, we started off solo. Definitely group practice divides the time. You get more time, your family. Probably the previous question, where you have to juggle 3 balls. If you have another hand with you, you will be able to juggle the balls a bit easier. So I think definitely group practice would work. It's the only catch in that is to get into a group with the right people, with the right set of minds, and with no ego between them. Ego will be the biggest killer for this group. That's my personal opinion.
So no clash point, right? Roy,
No
now
clash.
I want you to answer this.
So that's very elegantly put by Dr. Thakur. I must remember that 4 hands with 6 balls. But it is Mukta, horses for courses. Different people have different needs. I think if you're happy to work in a nursing home, do your gallbladder, appendix, piles, fistula, even a solo practice is okay. But if you really want to go ahead in life, to do major work, to do sick patients, to have a high risk practice, GI practice, I don't think there is a choice. You must be in a group. And the common fallacy that I hear is always take on people who are inferior to you or junior to you. Nothing could be further from the truth. I think in a group, you must take on people who are better than you. Seniority doesn't matter. In our group, we have Dr. S.K. Mathur, who was my teacher in KM. We have Madam Gore, who is 15 years my senior, who was HOD of Science. When I took them on, various people told me that if you have such a senior person in your group, they will overshadow you. And a small tree doesn't grow under a shadow. This is rubbish. I think it is your point of view. I think every person in that group must bring some value on the table. That is the bottom line. Like Madam Gore does a lot of our audits, mortality, morbidity, varicose veins, burns. I hardly do any open surgery. The open surgery in our department is done by Dr. Mathur. The abdominal wall reconstruction hernias are done exclusively by Vishwa Kaikar. So each of us within surgery has an area of specialization. We will certainly help each other. We will all obviously do teaching together. I do very little teaching. I have Dr. Mathur and Dr. Gore to do this. They do a fabulous job taking our residents down to radiology once a week. We do a mortality meeting once a month. We do a journal club once a month. I think all that is only because we work in a group. And yes, groups fall apart not because of financial problems. Let me tell you, financial problems are A, B, and C. They are shared. The formulas are clear. The problem is your ego. As a junior working with these 2 seniors, if I must be able to handle everyone's ego well, and each person is bringing some special thing to the table which I don't have. So I always feel that in a group, choose people who are synergistic with you. As Santosh said, you must get along with them as an individual. That is, your outlook to practice must be the same. But interestingly, they must bring in different areas of expertise to your group. There is no point having 2 active minimal access surgeons in the group. Bring on a HPV guy, bring on a transplant guy, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Can I add something, Mukta? Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. See, I always like to tell the story of Hewlett Packard. When they started in a small garage, they did not know what to call their company, Hewlett Packard or Packard Hewlett. So they said, let us do a toss. So they did a toss, and who won? Packard won, and it became Hewlett Packard. So it's that's the way, that's the spirit that you form a group. That is one thing. And secondly, HP had a very different philosophy of vertical growth, and that is how I think one should achieve. Now, in a vertical growth, what happened was, HP kept on focusing to be the best in one niche area in that entire computer industry. They shed off their other parts like laptops and other things and imaging and everything, and now wherever you go, the mainframe is only HP. No one can beat that. So that's the way. And the way, if you want your professional practice to become to have a vertical growth, then you have to become the best in one of the niche area in your profession. And for that, you need a group, as Dr. Roy said, that each one of them has to contribute to the best for that particular group, so that that entire team or the group really has a very vertical growth. And that is only possible with building teams. If you are a generalist, you remain generalist and you die generalist. But if you want to be known for a particular thing, because no one can know everything in your subspecialty. Okay, every subspecialty has further fragmented into multiple subspecialties. And I think our ophthal colleagues, our radiologists have learned it much earlier. So I think it has got fragmented into very small things, and each one adds the tremendous value. And there is an explosion of knowledge in each of these subspecialties. So to achieve that, your team members has to be best in one of these fragmented areas.
True, very true. I think Kanchan, that actually has answered our next question, that how does one make up one team or set up a department, right?
Yeah, I think we've almost answered that how does one make your team or set up a department? Or do we need to add, would Dr. Roy or Dr. Burkule like to add something to it? That how do we actually build up a team or set up a department?
So
for newcomers, those who are just starting a team.
So Kanchan, I already told you about the team. The second thing I bring of great value is to start a teaching program. And teaching program could be family physicians, could be fellow surgeons, could be anybody else. But the day you start a DNB program like you have in Jupiter, I have a lot of respect for Dr. Thakkar for doing this. He is otherwise so focused on his top line, bottom line. He has actually been very, very good. And that is what builds a long-term institution, an institution of learning. I always compare Fortis to Jupiter, and this is where Fortis loses out. Jupiter has got on great individuals, has given them freedom in working, and has built academics, where publications, presentations, peer approval, and DNB programs are so important.
True.
Well, I just had a personal query. Don't you think by teaching more doctors and bringing more qualified doctors, is it going to be better to the society, or you are creating more, well, not competition for yourself, but overall in this competitive world, you are bringing in more doctors who are more qualified to, sort of face problems later on?
Mukta, my take is the reverse.
What is your view on that?
Those doctors are going to get trained anyway. Whether you train them, somebody else will train them. So might as well you train them and let them become your allies and brand ambassadors.
That's a good one. Fine. Okay, so I think we're coming. I'm going to ask a last question, selected for again Dr. Burkule and Dr. Roy. Burkule first. Nitin, how do you find time for research? Because I see your publications on board very frequently. Same with Roy. So I want both of you to answer this. How do you find time to do research? Nitin.
Yeah. I think not that we have done some very high quality research. See, the thing is, our practice scenario is not very conducive for research. So it has to come from within. That you want to do some research, you want to write some reviews, and the same thing that you continue teaching your peers. The thing is, the idea for a particular observational study or any kind of study comes only when you are abreast with the literature. Because when you read a research paper, you realize that, oh, these are the questions which are answered, but these are the new questions that has been, these new questions are not yet answered, or it has raised more issues rather than solving the issue. And this way you start getting ideas, and those ideas you can give it to your to your colleagues and to your students, to your DNB students, so that they can start collecting the patients and the data prospectively, and that is how the research happens. It is not a solo job at all. It is impossible. You need people of same mentality around you to keep the data, to look into the data, process the data, write the manuscript, so and so forth, and even friends who have a very good insight into the biostatistics and all those things. So I think what right from the beginning we have done is not only in the institute but across the institutes we have created network where we work on a same problem, and then we create the data, we prepare the paper. Now one of my friend in Delhi is very good in statistics and also writing manuscripts, so we take his help to prepare the manuscript, so and so forth. And we never fight for who should be the first author or last author. It doesn't matter at all at this stage of your career. But I think that is the way you should. So the thing is, first, you should know the need of that particular research only by reading the research papers, and secondly, you should have like-minded colleagues across the institutes to do that kind of work.
So it's not very difficult, right?
Yeah. So Mukta, in our country, unfortunately, there is no reward or incentive for research or publication. When the MCI brought in a need for publications for promotions in medical colleges, with the typical Indian jugaad, we have these bought journals where you pay 8,000, 10,000 and get an article published, which are allegedly indexed. Now, I think I worked in England for 6 years. I did a PhD, which was by research, and part of that was writing grants. I got a £100,000 welcome grant to fund my own research, and I did a PhD thesis. So it was ingrained in me. I don't think, if you ask me how much I learned in England, I learned laparoscopic surgery, but more than that, I learned my approach to surgery. And therein, I think reading a paper, how to read a paper is an art. Half the papers I read in journals are crap. They're plagiarized work, copied, cut and paste from various things. So reading a paper, understanding statistics. So in our department, we employ a full-time person who only photographs and maintains all our CT scans, MRs, manometries, endoscopy pictures, and our intra-op videos. So this is going back 20 years. So I consider that as a down payment or investment on future growth for my department. And I insist that every person in my department should have at least one first name publication every year. So we still produce 8 to 10 papers a year. And I don't think there is anything like full-time, part-time, teaching hospital, corporate hospital. It is a mindset. If you think it's important, like Nitin said, you will do it. Otherwise, I've seen the biggest department producing only crap.
Okay, thanks. So I think, Kanchan, we are pretty much done with our questions and we finished in time, right?
Yeah.
So I think I would just like to sum up. Actually, I must say there are a lot of chat messages also that this has been a very exciting session, and this topic was actually very close to us, and maybe we all talk about it day in, day out. So just to bring up the gist of what people said in all the questions, I think the first thing to make your name is to have your patients trust in you. You should be believable. And as Chasmal said, you have to have your own identity that people would come to you. And to have that and to sustain that, as Roy said, you have to have a very skilled marketing. And like Chasmal said, a digital presence everywhere, which is absolutely, if you are in MCI limitations, and I think it's pretty much welcome. And as long as you know, as Santosh said, that ethics have to come from within. You cannot sort of impose on anybody. And having a teaching job or having students around or having same kind of colleagues around will keep you more updated, more skilled, and that's how the team will grow. And you should find people who are synergistic to you, people who will allow you to grow, and you will also allow them to grow. So non-clashing teams should come together to give a better service, to maintain the better service. That's what I believe. So to be part of team is also helpful in taking away your financial burden, but also to make you a little better. And updating yourself and being focused on your work is also something which is important. And lastly, as Nitin and Roy suggested, that publishing or research is not something which is very difficult. If you really have a heart to do it, you will be able to do it. So I don't think there are any other chat questions that have been placed. Kanchan, can you read any?
No, I think we've covered everything, and I think we should really thank our panelists to complete everything well in time. And thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thanks, Roy. Thanks, Nitin, Santosh, and Chasal for taking out your very
you very much.
Yeah, busy time on a Saturday evening. And I thank all of you who have joined and who have stayed with us throughout the program.